Hello, everyone. It's Nightfall, and well, it's December, and it's finally the time of year where I get to change my clothes, look at my awesome, ugly Christmas sweater, and let's do something a little bit different. Let's actually play a Christmas game this December. Let's play Roman's Christmas. Okay, so this is originally a game that was made in Chinese, I believe, and apparently, according to a lot of people, the translations are really off. So we're gonna have some fun with this. Anyway, without too much further ado, let's hop right on into it. Sharpening knife. What a cute little puppy. I have no idea about this game at all. I'm actually just going in blind, so wish me luck, those of you who've played this game before. The snow had stopped. A lonely lupine detective slowly pushed his way against the snow. Okay. This one? Okay. It was a familiar pathway he followed, his footsteps heavy on the snow-buried stone pavement as he approached his destination. Oh, that's pretty. Day 1, 23rd of December, 1285. It's 2 days until Christmas, and 2 days until the end of my fast. As nice as it is to feast on Christmas, I can't stomach a month-long fast. A whole month without any meat could certainly turn any wolf into a hare. I think this might just be like a Catholic thing. I'm pretty sure that they fast for Advent, or some of them do, as far as I'm aware. But please correct me. Next time, I'm not fasting for a month just to solve a case. Oh no, this is not a religious thing. He's got a case. Lucky for me, I closed my last case before it ruined my vacation at the White Star Tavern. White Star Tavern. Interesting. Sorry, I'm just grabbing my tea here. I'm not going to let another case interrupt my vacation. Okay, so I'm looking up right here. And looks like they didn't actually translate the name of the tavern. I'm guessing that means White Star, but we'll see. Not even a murder. I pulled my fur coat tighter, a wolf with a fur coat, and continued to walk against the cold wind toward the distant tavern. Finally, saw the sign of the White Star just as the warm breath coming out of me began to freeze against my snout. Okay, now you can't even blame me for not being able to read it. It says froze. I wonder why the tavern keeper wouldn't move to a better spot. If it weren't for their excellent cider, a tavern this far from downtown wouldn't last a year. I mean, downtown is nice and all, but you people, you know? Ooh, achievement unlocked. Welcome. Nice music. The door's hinges creaked as I pushed it open. The warm scent of fireplace smoke, cooking bacon, and wheat bread encircled me. Several oil-painted portraits of white-furred dragons decorated the walls, each one exquisitely painted. Yes, it's a dragon. I see that we've got like a spot here so you don't ruin your shirt. Very nice, very smart. Haven't seen you for a while. What would you like to have today? Oh, they're blinking. Character info added. Sarzan was discussing one of his precious portraits when I entered the tavern. Is that a portrait? He paused just long enough to speak, then continued his work. Why does an azure-scaled dragon like him love white-furred dragons so much? Maybe I'll never know. Roman, like the typeface there. Same as usual, but my fast doesn't break until the day after tomorrow. Got it. Sarzan put down the duster, then wiped his hands with a cloth at the counter before grabbing a beer mug and making his way toward the cellar. I hung my coat on the hat stand and sat beside the fireplace to warm myself up. I'm sorry, he just disappeared so quickly. Oh, here's another one. What a coincidence to meet you here. What about buying me a drink to celebrate this moment? Is that a dulcimer? Anzox, oh gosh, his names, must have heard me come in and rose up from the corner to approach me, bringing his lute with him. His lute. He's a bard, but one without patron to support his artistic career. Oh, that's okay. Most bards that I've heard of is they just kind of travel around and then they like go to taverns and be like, pay me for my singing. Pretty buff for a bard. He also is something of a detective fanatic, though I doubt if he has the necessary talents to actually be one. Oof, rude. Nowadays, he travels between taverns to sing for a separate note, all while hoping to find some rich, noble patron who will appreciate his talent and shower him with wealth. I'm pretty sure they're just gonna end up like making you sing and dance for them, like at their personal private events and parties and home. Oh, what a coincidence. Anzox, I am flattered that Roman, the great detective, still remembers me. I never forget a guy who can distract me every time when possible. Not on purpose, but still impressive. Of course I do. You left such an impression on me last time when I was trying to solve that case and you... I'm really sorry about that, please no! That's great. Anzox fled, clutching his loot. Great, saved a pint for myself. Wait, did you just like steal his pint? It's almost dinner time, but there's no other customers here. Is it because of the heavy snow? So, other than the other dragon bard dude? I'm starting to feel thirsty after staying by the fireplace for too long. Yeah, that's actually very accurate. If you actually like do not have a fireplace or you haven't like been by a fire for a long time, and I know a lot of people, at least that I grew up around, didn't. It gets really, really dry really fast. What's keeping Zarn from bringing up the booze? As I looked around, I spotted a guy covered in a priestly robe, wearing a silver cross, and curled up at a corner table. Is that a dude? He looks like a meow meow. He has a little fist. I don't know if you guys can see, but he has a little fist. I can't make out his face in the candlelight. His mug of cider is still full and untouched. Who in the heck is that a disguise? Hasn't he heard the saying about tigers changing their stripes? I don't think that's a tiger. Zarn came up. the little wiggle of the thing. Zarn came out from behind the counter and handed me a mug of cider along with the note. That's elegant. If you find out anything regarding her, keep it to yourself. Interesting. A meow meow named Elegant. Her? Whatever, I've seen stranger things. What, you don't think a girl can go to a tavern? Racist. I mean, sexist. I mean, racist and sexist. You hoe. I shoved the note up my sleeve, drank a gulp of cider, and purposely let out a loud belch. Why? You're just disgusting and have no manners. That's not gonna get you far as a detective. I relaxed in my usual chair, enjoying myself in the quiet and familiar atmosphere of the White Star Tavern. Looks like we're the only people here tonight. Like you said the last time the meow meow came. What is this sound? Oh, it's the logs in the fireplace. I thought it was like, the wheels of a cart going by outside. Zarn sat behind the counter reading the cookbook his father left him. Okay. Anzox was playing his lute. Elegant had gone upstairs a while ago. Maybe I'll live here after I retire, if I have the money. Assuming the White Star keeps its comforting atmosphere till then. Come to think of it, what should I do to kill the time before dinner is served? I brought a book called A Brief History of Apollyon with me to do some reading during my vacation. Although I don't really think this little book can tell me anything about my homeland I don't already know. I could also check out White Star's special Christmas menu. I can't have any meat for another 2 days, but a glimpse of a good menu and a little bit of imagination won't break the rules. So I actually sat in on a sermon a long time ago, and the priesty boy was all... He was really nice, though. He was, like, likening sin to eating a hamburger. And he's like, well, you gotta stop the sin where it starts. So if you want to eat the hamburger, you're always out going around eating hamburgers, like, in the middle of the night when, like, your wife and kids are asleep, and then you do everything to hide the evidence. Like, you only buy with cash, and you never take a receipt, and, like, you eat it in the car or at the place before you come home, and you, like, get rid of all the evidence and trash somewhere else. You're still committing the sin, right? So what if you just go there to smell the food? Well, you're still thinking about the sin. And then, like, what if you just, get the menu to smell the food, you're still thinking about the sin. You're still gonna want to relapse. And of course, like, breaking a fast is not a sin as far as I'm aware. I don't know. Again, I know nothing, but I did sit in on this one one sermon that, like, apparently I just really wanted to remember because the priesty boy was really funny. Comparing sin to burgers. But yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. Anyway, that big roundabout thing is just me saying that's not a good idea. Maybe I'll just take a nap. I could use a good nap after losing sleep for almost a month. I want to know what this guy did for a month. What should I do before dinner? Okay, now it's our turn. Well, I went through this whole long thing about how he can't look at the menu. And it would be really rude of me to... Well, not rude of me. It would be really hypocritical of me to look at the menu now. So I will stick to my morals. And I think he should read the story. Not for his benefit, but for mine. Also, if anything happens, he'll still not be, like, completely... like, engrossed in his book. He'll still know what's going on around him. It's like, have you ever read a book and you have no clue what's going on around you? But, like, if you've got a book that you kind of know what's going on, you can kind of, like, pay attention to what's going on, you kind of got an eye and an ear out. That's what I would do. Might as well do some serious reading. Serious reading? I thought you said you knew about this. I took the book, A Brief History of Apollyon, I borrowed from a crime scene out of my bag. Bruh. I don't think you can do that. That gets you in trouble. That gets you in big trouble. Well, I guess this is a long time ago, but don't do that now. Any cop people out here, like, that'll get you in big trouble. Don't ask me how I know. It's a cheap little book printed with movable type printing, and distributed among the citizens of Apollyon. Serious reading, but a cheap little book with movable type. I don't know what movable type printing is. The king believes that if the citizenry know more about the country's history, they'll be more loyal. I mean, yeah, lore tends to make you like something more. Thus, he rewarded the minister who invented the printing technique and built 3 machines to print these things day and night. Oh, so, like, printers. Like, just regular printer technique. Okay. Although most of the books handed out in the slums end up being more useful for starting fires and quality toilet paper. Yeah, you should probably work on the citizenry. But I won't rule your land for you. Or will I? Still, it's better than nothing. A Brief History of Apollyon. Dedicated to the great Helios II. May God bless him and his subjects, and may the sun shine upon his glorious land forever. Next page. Apollyon, the country we live in, was established by the father of Helios II, Helios I, the pioneer. On the 4th of September, 1169, a great earthquake endangered the reign of the ruling nobles. An earthquake, interesting. After the earthquake brought as God's punishment on the blasphemous nobility, how do we know this? God chose Helios, the pioneer, to execute his divine wrath. Helios I, the pioneer, led his royal soldiers of various species from Rimph, our glorious capital, and created the country of Apollyon we now know. Okay, so the original Helios nobility were apparently simple and had an earthquake to prove that they were simple, or killed them all. So I'm guessing this means that, like, everyone except for Helios the First died. I'm gonna say that. Okay, so this is what this means. Helios the First had beef with all the other nobility, and luckily a random earthquake appeared. Sorry, God caused an earthquake to punish the nobility, and then he was like, well, this is proof that I gotta be the king boy now, so yeah, let's all go to this Rimph place, so let's go from this Rimph place and make our own country. Yay, I'm king now. Helios I noticed the strife and discrimination caused by age-old hatreds between species. Thus, he decreed that all species in Apollyon would be equal, but some would be more equal than others. Oh, wait, sorry. On the 1st of September, 1230, Helios II ascended to the throne after Helios I's demise. Okay, that makes sense, like normal rules of ascension. Dot, dot, dot. Dot, dot, dot. Truly a blessed land of equality. Zarn came out of the kitchen and brought me a plate of smoked herring and pale ale. Pale ale. Oh, thanks. Sorry, it just rhymes. I'm sorry. That's almost meat, huh? Pity I can't serve you clams in this cold weather. At least it's better than carrots. Fortunately, we still have some smoked herring. I'd have to serve you carrots too, otherwise. Bon appetit! He returned to the kitchen, then brought Anzox a bowl of lamb stew. I'm jealous! Something about not coveting or something. Right, like you're the one who's on the fast. I don't even know why you're on a fast. You're clearly not on a fast for religious purposes. You're on a fast for a crime of some sort, and I'm very concerned. Elegant came downstairs, hesitated a moment, and then took a seat at a corner table. She's a cute little meow meow smile. She glanced at me and I looked elsewhere. Ugh, Zero chapter Christmas Carol. Okay. Investigating the crime scene. With a little meow meow. Little meow meow. After dinner, I sat into a rocking chair near the fire and let myself relax. The logs in the fire heavy with pine resin. Pine resin? Okay, so I learned this literally last year. Luckily not through my own doing, but apparently if you burn pine, it like goes up like a rocket. So don't burn pine. And popped as the chair slowly swung back and forth with a creaking noise. Not a whole lot of customers this month. Zarn brought a chair and sat down next to me, gazing into the fireplace. Don't worry so much, just give it a couple of days and you'll have as many customers as you've had in years before. I get the feeling this year might be a little different. Why? Can't really tell why though. Oh. Well then why do you get the feeling? Is it just because like of other people generally being like that? Oh, poor Zarn. Perhaps the howling winds outside are keeping the customers away, Anzox says. I think so. Anzox is so little boy. Look. Anzox heard our conversation and came to join us with his lute. As if something as minor as high winds could stop folk from having cravings for Zarn's famous home cooking. Aww. Flatter me all you like, you'll still not get a discount. Aw, rude. Sometimes it's just nice to flatter people, you know, just let them know that they're doing good. You know, you don't hear compliments all that often. Also, especially males. Compliment the men in your life. They probably haven't heard as much as females have, but then again, compliment the females too. Compliment people. Let them know what they're doing good. And that's my PSA. I was being sincere. Yeah, see? See? He's not used to it. Though I wouldn't mind a discount. White Star has a variety of activities to entertain overnight guests and those who stick around after dinner. There's a darts competition Saturday evening. If all the players are friendly, there are no authorities around. Zarn will cover tables with blue flannel and take bets. So you're not allowed to bet on your own friendly games? Or is this because it's a tavern? I doubt anybody like that would be out in this winter weather. I elbowed Zarn quietly and gave him a wink. Not tonight. What not tonight? What not tonight? Are you gonna have this illegal darts competition, just the two of you? He glanced toward Elegant before whispering to me, with one hand hiding his mouth. After all, we don't know her that well. Let's hold off on the gambling for the time being. Okay, so gambling in general is just like frowned upon here. Okay. Well, if you think of something else, let me know. I'll see if I can if I can keep myself occupied. Also, aren't detectives part of the police force? Or is he just like a random dude who's like not affiliated with them and just helps the authorities if he needs to? It's very confusing. What do you want to do tonight? Having no idea now. Listen to Anzox's music or talk to Elegant. Let's talk to Elegant. We need to figure out who this person is. By the way, I don't know Elegant very well. I'll ask her quietly when Anzox won't notice. I walked towards the round table she was sitting at before pulling out a chair and taking a seat and offering my hand. Hello, I'm Roman. What was that little twitch? I waited for Elegant to reach out for the handshake, but since she didn't want to, my right hand hovered in the air awkwardly as the silence. Elegant looks like she's got like some kind of religious-y ordery things is my guess. Who knows? She also might just be really shy. She seems really shy. Hello. I apologize if I'm disturbing you. I was about to push my chair away and end the embarrassing conversation before it started, but paused as she motioned for me to stay seated. She looked me up and down. Slowly, I could almost feel the weight of those lake blue eyes through that thin veil. I don't think they're heavy. As a detective used to observing others, I know how uncomfortable it is to be examined so thoroughly by a sharp and intense gaze. You're on good terms with the owner of this tavern, are you not? Well, you could say that, but how can you tell? The way you pass information is too obvious. I felt naked. It was like her eyes were peering through me and into my soul. Cats tend to do that. You need not fret. I do not care about your business. I would imagine a detective, like you, has more than a few informants. Yes. I didn't notice until now that I was involuntarily biting my left thumb. It's a nervous tick I've had since I was young. I still haven't managed to break the habit. Bruh, you're a detective. Okay. No need to be polite. Just tell me why you came to me. Well, if you insist. Relieved, I clenched my fist and took my handkerchief to wipe the sweat from my pads. My little paw pads. Actually, I came here to ask. Okay, so this is clearly a meow meow. This is clearly a female meow meow. Let's ask about the cider. Not interested in actually drinking from your glass? I prefer to remain sober in case something unexpected happens. Interesting. At this moment, Anzac suddenly came up. Still deep in conversation, Ari? I thought you were talking about nothing, so I thought I'd join in. Trust me, we got plenty to talk about. By the way, I heard a puzzle in a tavern from another town. Would you be interested? Sorry, we're kind of in the middle of... What's the puzzle? Elegant seemed interested, taking her mug and sitting down with Anzox by the fire. Playing a puzzle game again, Anzox. Zarn just finished cleaning the kitchen and came to sit by the fire. Yes, you came just in time. I'm not really in the mood. Hear a story or go to rest. So here's the thing. It looks like this game, like you only have one choice and you can't go back and do other things. So I almost feel like we won't be able to tell what's going on, and I'm super curious about like what this puzzle is. Also, it might just be because I'm not recording this at like probably 2 in the morning when this guy's having his dinner. So let's see what's going on. Let's listen to the stories. Not like you've got anything better to do, and I got an achievement there, Fireside Chats. You can just listen and let us solve the puzzle if you want. I'd better do it myself than leaving it to you guys. Let's start, Anzox. Anzox cleared his throat, then caressed his lute and said, Ooh. One night in a small farming town, famous for its barley, the only windmill in the town came to a stop. This was the first time it had happened. Really? Windmills stop all the time. Sorry, I'm breaking the thing. Since the mill was so vital to their work, the villagers rushed out to check the mill. From afar, the villagers saw the windmill blades were no longer rotating. They thought that the sudden wind and snow had broken the transmission shaft that ran the mill. The villagers came to the mill, the ground covered in thick snow over their ankles. So the snow is thick enough that it went to past their ankles. The dark wooden mill towered over them in the wide expanse. Blades turned in an ominous position, looking like an inverted cross. Oh, so like the cross of St. Peter? Sorry, guys. Any of you that are Satanists, an upside-down cross is just the cross of St. Peter. I assumed this was a puzzle, not some bard tale used to coax coins from drunkards. Says Elegant. Elegant swished as she impatiently drummed her fingers on the tabletop while Zarn sat and listened attentively. Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like this is a story, not a puzzle. He shrugs. It's not as though you're paying me, so just sit and listen. Ahem, allow me to continue. As they drew closer, they found the windmill's maintenance gondola was tied with a hemp rope to secure it. So I get to hit the clue button. Safety rope. Ordinary rope tying the miller on the maintenance basket. Cool. Hang on, just show up some more of my... So, like... ordinary rope. That's it. Nothing else. We can't click it. We can't do anything else. And we got characters. Roman, I'm a gray wolf, 32 years old. I'm a detective. You're so fluffy. Zarin, azure scaled dragon, great cub. Blonde mane, 30 years old. Okay. But then they saw it. The miller who ran the mill was suspended upside down in the middle of the air. Beep, beep, beep. His eyes were wide open with fear, his face contorted, as though he was screaming in terror. His paws were stiff and hanging down and level with the ledge of the windmill blades. The snow from yesterday clung to his cold body. Yeah, rigor mortis would have set in. Corpse position added to the clue. How ironic that the object used to ensure safety had become a lethal weapon. No one could imagine that. Anzox. Anyone could imagine that. Come on, bro. So you have another clue. Lethal. Oops, I guess I didn't hit correctly. But, Miller's body was upside down, hands level with the mill blades. Wait a minute, Anzox. Did the safety rope really cause the death of the miller? Do you disagree, Roman? After all, the safety rope was tied to the miller's dead body. Yes, but why can't the safety rope be the murder weapon? It was tied to the ankle. Well, here's the thing. If you, say, use a rope to strangle someone, you can still use the same rope around their ankle. That was my thought, but tied to the ankle. It can't be deadly if it's tied to the ankle. Is it like that sports from overseas? What do they call it? Bungee jumping. I think they tie you... They don't tie you at the ankle, do they, when you bungee jump? I thought it was always like a harness around like the pelvic girdle. Correct. A safety rope is typically tied to the ankle or waist. And waist. Considering the position of the body, the only possible way was tied to the ankle. That is indeed true, but there must be something that killed the miller. We can discuss that next. Go on, and then Anzox. As I was saying, the miller had died in the windmill, where he had spent his days and nights. The local police initially determined that the old miller was trying to repair the windmill while he was drunk. Okay, guys, don't drink and drive. Don't drink and use power tools. And don't drink and do stuff like at 50,000 stories up where you could possibly fall and die to your death. Okay? Thank you. He had slipped, lost his footing, and fallen from the repair gondola. However, the cause of death was still unclear, though his head might have struck the windmill. The townsfolk invited one of the greatest detectives in the realm to investigate the scene. He was an old-fashioned detective and refused until he was paid no less than 13 rare and all travel expenses. Makes sense. 13 rare? That's 910 sate. Meow meow, I have no idea what these are, but you're very cute. Continue. For just one case, that detective could eat fried lamb chops every meal for a month if he hadn't vowed to fast until Christmas. Again. I wish my cases paid that well. Elegant, do they not? I thought you were worth the price. Oh, Elegant's so nice. Anzox started to laugh, but stopped when I glared at him. When the townsfolk came to his humble residence, even though his cases pay so well, he was seated behind his great desk, playing with a prism he had bought from the capital's Grand Bazaar. Sunlight from the small window passed through the lens and scattered into a rainbow of color. After listening to the villager's account, the detective struggled to get up from his easy chair with a cane, then asked his only servant to call the carriage. So just like an old man detective. This would be one of his few field investigations. One problem was that the description of the crime scene is not detailed enough to his liking. Another problem was that the crime scene was not descriptive. Like how they said that the crime scene was, it was not descriptive. Another problem was that the case sounded so bizarre. And the biggest problem was that the glib bard could not get to the point. I like Elegant. Then why don't you tell the story? Sudden interruption made Anzox blush with anger. It's fine. The details make the story more vivid, even if they are irrelevant, says Sarn. The day after the body was discovered, the detective arrived at the town in the afternoon. He learned from the gossip in the tavern that on the night of the miller's death, 2 people had spent the night in the mill, but they both had alibis. Who were they? One was the miller's daughter. The other was the miller's apprentice. They had spent the night in the mill as usual. The apprentice is in love with the daughter, and they both were not allowed to be married, and therefore they decided that they would go and kill the father instead. The end. About those 2 people, character info added. I'd like to know. Okay, character info. Okay, so we got Elena. Don't know anything about her. Hans, Miller's apprentice, 18-year-old cat, came from a nearby town 8 years ago, gained Miller's favor due to his diligence. Miller might be a cat. One sunny night, his body was found hanging from the middle of the mill. Okay. Tell me about the miller's daughter. Elena, the miller's daughter. She's 16 years old and a gray wolf. She had no shortage of suitors in the town, and even caught the eye of a few local nobles. I'm not going to say it, but I might have told you so. And it's not just because of her father's wealth. She was also renowned for her beauty. She had been the dream girl for every bachelor in town since she was 14 years old. We're going to assume that ages are different. A 14-year-old wolf is not a 14-year-old human. Is not a 14-year-old rat. Can you imagine if rats lived to 14? Oh. She had a good relationship with her father, or at least other outsiders thought so. But who knows what happens behind closed doors? I also want to know about the apprentice. His name was Hans. He came to the mill from the next town 8 years ago. So he came from the next town over 8 years ago, and at the time he was just 10 years old and all alone in the world. No parent could be so cruel if it weren't for money. Uh-oh. Fortunately, the miller treated him well. The apprentice was also very clever. He always seemed to be able to succeed, no matter how complicated the miller's orders. Recently, there was a rumor that he had a close relationship with the miller's daughter. I totally did not call that. Let me think. So let's see what else we got here. Nothing else. Go on. I have to say, those 2 caught my interest. Please go on. What about the miller's reputation? The miller had lived his entire life in the town and had no enemies. He was well regarded by the townsfolk. His wife died of puerperal fever shortly after she gave birth to Elena, and he had lived as an old bachelor ever since, so he was a widower. He had several drinking friends who he'd meet with in the pub almost every night after supper, drinking and talking until the tavern closed. That sounds like some of the tavern regulars. Some folk at the tavern provided the detective with additional information. Miller had been extremely generous recently, and one day he even bought everyone in the tavern a round of ale in celebration. That's all the information on those present. Let's take a look. Whoop. I don't know why it's cut off, but it usually stays at the tavern until it closes at 10. It's interesting that it won't let me, but okay. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I'm sorry. That's all the information on those present. Having gotten his fill of gossip from the noisy drinkers in the tavern, the detective left the tavern and went walking towards the mill. Within 10 minutes, the detective arrived at the mill. It was a clear and windless morning. Did they ever end up taking the miller down, or is he just dangling? Is he just dangling? Poor guy. The snow at the gate of the mill hadn't been swept away by the overzealous villagers. The detective, relieved and cautious, checked the snow from the outside. The snow was unexpectedly clean. So, I don't know what this is. But this is the tavern. Okay, I'm guessing this is the footprints from him to the tavern. And then the footprints just stop near the mill. And this is the area where it stopped. This is them showing that the footprints stopped right outside the tavern, but not, right outside the mill, but not close enough to be like going in the mill or around the mill. Apart from the footprints left by the villagers who found the corpse in the outer circle, and the footprints that went all the way to the front of the house, there was nothing except some messy traces in front of the last footprints. It seemed there was no shortcut or alternate entrance. The detective put on his hat and came to the mill door. He glanced down by accident before entering the door. There seems to be a circular imprint around the last footprints in front of the door, and the stone used to hold the door open had also been moved. Stepping inside, the detective met Elena, who was covering her face and crying, and Hans, who was comforting her. The body of old Miller was still hanging on the windmill, swinging like a pendulum in the... What? Take it down! That is so disrespectful. Take it down. Do you want to listen to their testimony first, or go straight to the scene? Testimony. Hear the testimony. Perhaps you should investigate the scene first in case something gets destroyed later. Not to mention, the witness does not seem to be emotionally stable. Maybe you should listen to her, even though she is a glare coming through Elegant's veil. Should have set Anzox on fire, so he shut his mouth tactfully. The detective first went up the stairs to check the scene of death. Anzox quickly sketched something on a piece of paper and handed it over. The mill is divided into 3 floors about as tall as 5 people. Okay. Is this where he's, like, his head is, and he's, like, upside down? Between the maintenance gondola on the 3rd floor and the window on the 2nd floor is the connecting shaft between the fan blade and the mill. Okay. Maintenance gondola is extremely narrow and long, and it's about as wide as an adult's foot. There was a layer of snow on it, but no footprints. 2 ropes were tied at the railing of the basket. It's up here. The left part was covered with snow like other parts of the railing, and there was no snow on the right part. The detective leaned against the railing and looked down. Under the wooden railing hung the cold body of Miller. He did. D-E-D. There's no idea. I guess this means there was no loss of snow, and here there was lots of snow. The rope on the left has only a section of rope ahead, swaying in the wind like a peddler who dared not go home without a sail. As he tried to lean out further, the railing creaked under the pressure. The snow fell from the inclined railing and disintegrated in the air. The detective's biological instincts kicked in, his fur bristling involuntarily. He pulled back quickly and turned to check the situation at the entrance, putting his right hand inside his coat and grasping the dagger he kept to defend himself from villains. It was a gift from his first love. Every time he held the dagger, it reminded him of the temperature of her palm that fateful day. I would listen to a love story or something. Please, 1 Elegant is enough. Poor Elegant. The detective turned around and found nothing behind him. He went downstairs quietly and found that the 2 of them were where they were, as if they had not moved. He went back to the 2nd floor and looked up from the window. Above his head was the rotating shaft of the windmill blade, which gleamed black from grease from the daily rotation and maintenance. The shadow cast by the rotating axis hit the detective's face, which gave him a very uncomfortable feeling, as though he was some prehistoric hunter shuddering in terror at the sight of some giant beast. The gears of the windmill were exposed about 30 centimeters away from the upper eaves of the windows. The triangular teeth were distributed around the rotating shaft. The detective put his hand into his coat pocket and gently ran his thumb across the edge of the prism he carried. Something came to his mind. The detective looked out of the window again. The lowest gear groove seemed to be more worn than the others. He went back to the 1st floor, passing by the living room and straight into the kitchen. The oven seemed to have been used recently, and the kitchen filled with the mixture of the pungent smell of charcoal and the delicious grain smell of barley bread. He opened the oven and flicked the ashes with a stick. The shape of a piece of charcoal under the ashes reminded him of the prism in his pocket, like a wedge. Having the necessary evidence, the detective returned to the living room to question the witnesses. Not noticing the detective's approach, Elena sat upright with hands support, her eyes drooping. She was dressed in a light blue nightdress, and her eyes were red and swollen. Her facial fur was combed, and it was easy to see the state of disorder despite her attempts to cover it. Okay, so Anzox has a voice. Anzox coughed a few times, and when he spoke again, it was in a higher, feminine voice. I have to do this now? Welcome, dear Mr. Detective. I assume this visit is related to my father's death. It'd be nice if you could talk this way more often. Oops, sorry. It's really hard to speak like this. Come on, show us your dedication to your craft. It took the detective about 10 minutes to persuade the apprentice to go upstairs with the servant, lest one of their testimonies influenced the other. After formally introducing himself and some brief preparation, the detective asked her to tell the story of that night. Testimony. The testimony of Elena. 1. Yesterday after dinner, my father went to the tavern as usual. I finished my housework after about 8 o'clock. It was about 2 hours before my father came back. Nothing seemed strange. Then I went up to Hans's room to chat with him. 2 hours passed by, and we didn't realize that my father had yet to return as normal. It wasn't until around 11 o'clock that we realized how late it really was. I hurried downstairs thinking my father was quietly sitting in the living room ready to scold me. Remember, the father gets back from the tavern at 10, and these two were there for 2 hours? But he wasn't there. The door was closed, and no one was in the living room. I had a feeling that something terrible must have happened. It was like a snake had slithered under the door and crawled up my spine to whisper in my ear. I don't know if it was difficult because of the wind. I don't know if it was because of the wind or the old hinges, but the door on that day was more difficult to open than usual. I pushed the door open, and the wind blew the snow into the house. I propped the door open and made my way outside. When I got under the windmill, I had a strange thought, like an itch on my back that couldn't be scratched, and I couldn't help but look up. Hanging above my head was a purple face that was swollen and swaying in the winds. His eyes were as prominent as a goldfish's. Saliva had flowed down his mouth, his open screaming mouth, and frozen into ice on his snout and fur. I was frightened, so I rushed back into the house and closed the door. I couldn't sleep afterwards. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still see that face. I can't believe that that was my father. As she finished with her description of the horrible situation, Elena collapsed on the sofa with her hands covering her face. At this time, the detective smelled something fishy in her testimony. After thorough thought of her testimony, the detective found the irreconcilable contradiction between the testimony and the evidence. Which evidence contradicts Elena's testimony? Let's do a quick look again. Well, 1, hanging upside down, the rope would not have strangled him. He was killed soon after he returned home, so before 11. Since he was still in his coat, every person in the town had an alibi when he died. The body had no wounds. He may have accidentally slipped and fell from the hanging basket when repairing the windmill. Cause of death is unknown, maybe struck his head on the mill. The miller's daughter seemed to have a special bond with the miller's apprentice. There are footprints in the outer ring of snow, one of which reached the door. In front of the last footprint, there was a jumble of tracks. There were circular imprints found around the last footprint in the front of the door. A stone used to hold the gate for easy access had been moved. The 3-story, 8-meter-tall building between the maintenance basket on the 3rd floor and the window on the 2nd floor, there is the connecting shaft of the windmill blades. It's slightly higher than the doorway. Hanging basket's very narrow and long. There were no footprints. There were 2 pieces of rope tied to the railing, one on the left with snow and one on the right without. The gear, about 30 centimeters from the eaves window, the lowest notch, is badly worn. Coal. There's a wedge-shaped piece of coal in the oven. The miller went to the pub after dinner. Elena went to Hans's room to chat from 8 to 11. When she went out, she saw the dead miller. She was so frightened she shut the door. Okay, which evidence? Oops. I don't know how to go back. Help. Oh, this is me choosing the evidence. Okay. There's footprints. Footprints. Oh, give me some details. Paradox is no other footprints on the scene. Or Elena will destroy the footprints. Well, there were other footprints. What do you mean Elena will destroy footprints? Oh, like the jumble? Well, no other footprints on the scene. It said earlier that only one series of footprints of the site reached the gate of the mill. Since Elena had gone out, she would have certainly left her footprints as well. Although I don't know how she did it, Elena must have concealed something. As for the reason, we can only go on with the inquiry. The detective tidied his sleeves and carefully pointed out the errors in Elena's testimony. As I recall, Miss Elena, you just said you went out to check outside? Yes. Then why is there only one set of footprints from the outside of the house to the gate of the mill? Well, I must be so scared that my memory's confused. Let me start over. She's so cute. Okay, so let's look at these again. Well, it's open. This still doesn't tell me anything. And clues, sister of corpse position. This is just all the same stuff we got. Okay. Yesterday after dinner, my father went to the tavern as usual. I went upstairs for Hans to chat. Uh-huh. 2 hours passed by and there was no sign for my father's return. I went downstairs around 11 to find that he had not come back. I opened the door and my father's distorted head appeared as the body swung outside. No. I was so scared that I ran back to the house and closed the door. The scene was so frightening that my memory was confused. And that night, every time I closed my eyes, that horrible face would pop up. I couldn't sleep at all. As long as a lie is told, more lies are bound to be used to cover it up. It's a pity that even the most talented folk can't make up every lie perfectly, let alone under such pressure. The detective said, Miss Elena, there is really no need to hide anything from me. Even the detective saw through the lies she made up this time. Corpse position. It's the position of the body. How could Elena see his head on the door if the miller's paws were even with the windmill's blades? Elena saw what she should not have seen, only because she was actually out there and cleaned up her footprints when she came back. Not to mention, cleaning up her footprints is suspicious. Why would you need to clean your footprints if you're just a witness? Perhaps she panicked and did something that would implicate herself accidentally, or the whole scene she described was just some sort of delusion. That could be true. As you said, you saw the face of the deceased on the door. In the door. This is definitely impossible for you with the current position of the body. Corpses don't simply move after death, do they? How could? I don't even know. Elena screamed hysterically and ran out of the living room. It seemed that he couldn't get near her for a while. So the detective went upstairs to visit another witness, Hans. The detective saw Hans upstairs. He was wearing a soft hat, a burlap jacket, and brown linen trousers. Sorry, just give me a second. Yeah. The dark gray eyes under the brim made the detective uncomfortable for some reason. That kind of look reminded him of a colleague he met in another case several years ago. A wolf with beautiful blue eyes that had an unruly and wild gaze. Don't push at you, says Roman. Calm down, man. As I started to get up, I was pressed back to my seat by Zaren's The clause. He's still so sensitive about conflict between customers. Well, yeah, you don't want your customers to be conflicting. 5 years ago, someone made the mistake of starting a fight in his tavern. He grabbed the guy with only one paw and threw him across the street. Somehow this attracted more customers. I still don't know what they're thinking. Are they all masochists? No, they just like a good brawl. And the detective noticed that the hair on his paws seemed to be darker than elsewhere. The detective's face remained unchanged. He lowers his hat to cover his spying eyes. Mr. Hands, I hope you don't mind. I'm just doing my job. The detective sat in the wooden chair opposite of Hands and handed his cane to the server behind him. I would like to hear about what happened last night. So straightforward, Mr. Detective. Well, I sure will try my best. Testimony. Testimony of Hands, 1. Yesterday after dinner, like every ordinary night, the miller went to the pub to pass the time. Elena and I stayed in the mill to watch the house. We stayed in the room until 11 o'clock. Then found out that the miller didn't come back at his usual time. Elena went downstairs to check while I hurried back to my room. It wasn't long before I heard Elena screaming downstairs and the sound of the door being slammed. I went downstairs and saw Elena, pale and slumped on the ground. I took her back to the room. She told me off and on about what she saw outside the door. I stayed at her bedside all night to keep her company. Okay, just one question. Is there anything suspicious? Well, there's a lot of stuff that's suspicious, and this doesn't tell me. So, one is the room, because Elena said something different. Their testimony is contradictory about their room. Obviously, the wording seems to be a little subtle. What about it? Different rooms? Elena said she went to Hans' room to chat with him, but Hans' testimony does not seem to mention that he went back to my room. It may not be the same room. It seems like one of them forgot the prepared testimony in haste. Mr. Hans, I have a small question. It has nothing to do with the case, and more with me being a jealous old soul faced with 2 young lovers. Which room do you usually date in? Well, in Elena's room. If that were the case, then Elena's testimony contradicts yours. She told me that you 2 were in your room as usual. Oh, really? She may just be confused by the shock. Or was she so frightened she forgot the alibi you agreed on in advance? What are you talking about? I don't even know. Hans kept fiddling with his hands, and the fine beads of sweat moistened the short hairs on his forehead. His gray eyes avoided the detective's gaze. Oh, please excuse me, Mr. Hans. It's just my speculation after all. Okay. But I wouldn't choose a partner who gets nervous so easily if I were you. Ah, your hands shake when you're nervous. Can you even grasp a rope with those? The detective could read Hans' tense behavior like a book, and now he needed only a little physical evidence to prove his conjecture. The detective went out to the snowfield where the body had been lowered from the windmill by the servant. The miller's body was spread out in the snow so that anybody could see it. As the detective inspected the now neatly arranged core, he could not help but grimace. I won't tell you how, but I have had to wrestle with a couple corpses. They are really hard to move, the position. So he's just this poor guy. I'm sorry, I'm laughing when I shouldn't be, but this poor guy is on the ground, but he will be in the same position as he was when he died. So he's his arms up in the air and everything. I don't know why. This is sad. And we called that neatly arranged. She's not going to be neatly arranged, my friend. Especially with the snow and ice. Yeah, he's stuck. After reprimanding the servant who had carelessly moved the body, he went to investigate it. Scene investigation. Please click the place you want to investigate on the picture to collect evidence. What do you mean? Look at this! What is this? Put on gloves and pulled aside the miller's coat and revealed his thick fur. He could feel the liquid. That don't make a fun that fast, my friend. Under the miller's skin, the miller looked quite plump thanks to his wealthy life. Is this even related to the Kate? Don't add so many pointless details to this case. Who knows, perhaps. I'm talking about this. That looks like it's an injury. Fine. Miller's ankle was tied with safety note, cheap but reliable. The knot was a hangman's noose. And now he plans to sell us rope. I'm not a merchant. There's something in his hands. Curled fingers around and found the gray fur inside his nails, which matched his own fur color. Under the miller's fur on his chest, there were scratches. Thank you! What else do we want to see, friends? He was scared by the detective looked closely at his face. He was scared by the dead miller's twisted face, even though it wasn't his first time seeing a body. Okay. He looks angry. The miller's wide-open eyes were growing cloudy and lifeless. His wrinkles were getting clearer due to stiff facial muscles. His mouth stayed shut, but the silent fear still escaped from it. He had been greatly frightened. The miller's fur remained fluffy, with no sign of strangle marks. He got up and finished the search. Now he knew what had happened. Now let's put the pieces back together. Wait, there's still a lot of questions to be solved. Don't you take notes for the evidence. Take a good look. It seems that the main problems in this case lie with the cause of the miller's death, the weapon that killed him, and whether he was murdered, and the killer's motive. The process of how the case happened is also noteworthy. If it's impossible to confirm the sequence of events, we should focus on the factors that change with time, such as weather. Quick Q&A. Okay. Weapon. What's your opinion on the murder weapon? What's the murder weapon? So he had some scratches on his chest. And he was yoked upside down. What was the stone used for? Because the twine can't have killed him. A knife, we have no proof, though he does have scratches on his chest. A stone would not have been used. Shock? Shock could have killed the old man. Maybe it was an invisible weapon. Interesting. How about murdering him with the shock which is caused by the sudden drop? Not everyone would be so easily scared as you are. I love that. But anyone would be shocked if they were hung without any preparation, let alone a drunk, overweight miller. Indeed, I suppose the sudden death could be impossible because of those external factors. Could be possible because of those external factors. Seems like this time the detail wasn't just to add dramatic flair. Of course, every detail is necessary. So why did you take nearly half an hour to describe the suspect's... Shh. Motive. Oh, it's not going. Help. I broke it. Oh, it's stuck, so I have to go to method. What's the process of the crime? Deductive reasoning. Arrange the occurrences chronologically from top to bottom by dragging chips to each position. Whoa, okay, this is really cool. So, first of all, see, I didn't realize that like it was a circular mark like a rope would make. I thought it was like a stone, so that's upsetting. Okay, let's see. The suspect dropped the rope from the maintenance basket, and it left a circular mark on the ground. Then, the suspect tied the rope to the miller's neck, but it hitched to his ankle as he lifted him in the air. that wouldn't have worked because he's a fat man. So, the suspect dropped the rope from the maintenance basket. It left a circular mark on the ground. This can't have happened. Lifted him into the air and ran away after committing the crime. There's my bet. It'll help a lot if you arrange the events chronologically. You can manage your thoughts about the case easier this way. Sort the 5 chips from top to bottom and place your bet without hesitation. Easy peasy. What? I sorted them. What do you mean? The suspect dropped the rope from the maintenance basket. The rope left a circular mark on the ground. The rope hitched the miller's ankle. The suspect lifted the miller into the air and burnt down the wooden wedge. Good lord. But it's not impossible. Tell me about motive. Let's talk about the motive then. First of all, we already have established Miller got along well with villagers. So what could the motive for the murder be? What is the possible motive? The daughter's relationship. The miller wouldn't allow the relationship between his daughter and the apprentice. I mean, someone murdered him so the pair could be together? It's unnecessary to kill him just because of the disagreement, though. You'd be surprised. So it means that something recently happened to provoke the culprit to killing the miller quickly. Then the identity of the criminal is obvious. Even so, there's no need to kill him. Who's the culprit? Both of them, I think. Criminal is both of them. It was both of them. Yes, they share the common benefit and the operation of the trap needs coordination. Then the whole picture of this case is crystal clear. How come you're so excited since you aren't the one who solves the puzzle? I'm just excited to see you work, okay? Meanwhile, me like fumbling through, like, what does this mean? So the whole story of the case is case payback. Oh, it's so cute. The miller was a nice guy, and he was particularly picky about his daughter's relationships, especially her relationships with his apprentice. He's like, here, have present. And he's like, oh no. But even he couldn't stop their love from blossoming. The two young people seized every moment they got to be together. And this situation had been going on for a while. As eager as they were to be open with their relationship, they couldn't bear the miller's denial of their love any longer. All of a sudden, the miller made an important decision. That is, the miller betrothed his daughter to someone else. The miller picked out a satisfactory candidate among his daughter's suitors and announced his decision to her. The miller thought he had arranged a good marriage. Naturally, his special generosity made his acquaintances at the tavern extremely enthusiastic, which is why they decided to kill the miller that night. The lovers were supposed to escape that night after they finished the deed, but the heavy snow and other accident forced them to change their plan. After the miller went out, Hans tied a noose with the safety rope and lowered it down from the 3rd floor maintenance gondola. By the way, the noose is the method used to hang murderers. Yeah, that makes sense. Gallows. The original plan might have been for Elena to meet the miller on the 1st floor, put the knot hanging from the windmill around his neck. Then Elena sent a signal to Hans and let him pull up the rope to hang the miller. But even the calmest people may make a costly mistake when they kill for the first time. At about 10 o'clock, Hans, whose hands shook when he got nervous, lost his grip on the rope and dropped the knot in the snow, leaving the circular imprint. Elena, who had just opened the door, was ready to greet her father, saw the noose fall to the ground. She probably wanted to warn Hans to take it back, but the miller was already close by then. It could attract the miller's attention if the rope was pulled back up. The murder attempt should have failed by that point, but by sheer coincidence, the miller took the wrong step that changed the whole thing. He stepped on it, and she helped. He stepped into the noose by accident. At At that time, Hans had just grabbed the rope outside the maintenance gondola. When the miller's paw moved forward in the snow, the rope was pulled. Hans felt the pull and instinctively pulled up the rope according to the original plan, pulling the miller up by his ankle. The miller fell in the snow before he was pulled into the air, leaving the messy marks in front of his footprints as he struggled. Hans hung the miller in the air, dared not let go of the rope, and let him struggle in the air. After a while of struggling and cursing, the face of the miller changed from red to purple, and as more and more blood rushed to his head, his movements became weaker and weaker until they stopped. Elena and Hans wanted to escape after this comedy of success, but finally decided to disguise the scene as if the miller had accidentally died and planned their testimonies. After all, as long as they could get rid of the suspicion of murder, they could inherit the mill. The reward for taking such a risk was extremely good. Hans tied the safety rope with the maintenance gondola, pretending that the miller had tied the rope himself. However, it had snowed by that time. The rope tied to the fence pushed the snow off, therefore there was no snow on that right side. He also stuck a wooden wedge in the windmill gear and made the windmill stop spinning. That's the wedge. As the distant villagers saw the windmill stop, they would naturally think that the miller accidentally fell and died while repairing the windmill. The morning that the detective arrived was sunny and windless. The windmill wouldn't spin even without the wooden wedge stuck in. This was his chance to throw the wedge into the bread stove and destroy the evidence. Then all he needed to do was just go back to the room and wait till dawn. If you don't look close at the scene, you would think that the miller died by accident. Although it looks intriguing at first, it's actually a novice puzzle with many loopholes. Next time, I'll give the legendary Detective Roman a much more difficult puzzle. Not me, though. I had struggled with that last part. Like, what do you want me to do? After the long investigation, the detective told everyone his inferences in the tavern and left a final decision to the villagers. The snow stopped. The detective opened the door and of the snow-covered tavern. Thick snow still covered the paved road, and the detective set foot on the road home. It's late. Looks like there won't be any more customers tonight, so I'm going to close up for the night. If you need anything, please come to the 3rd floor to find me. Zarn gave me and Elegant the room keys, closed the tavern, and went upstairs. Then perhaps it's time for me to go upstairs. I dare not risk being locked out by Zarn if it's too late. There are 3 beds in the attic. Zarn usually has 2 beds for himself, so he can have enough space to stretch his limbs. The 3rd bed is usually rented at a low price to acquaintances who need accommodation on a tight budget, such as Anzox. Elegant and I sat at the same round table, staring at each other silently. Is there anything else to do tonight? Well, let's just save real quick here. For us, it's actually, we're going to save and we're going to take it up again next time. Thanks everyone for playing with me and watching me struggle, and we'll figure out what else we do next time. Bye-bye!